Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Alexis on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Wisconsin, which I had to grit my teeth while saying that because another Wisconsinite, another friendly Midwestern rivalry we got going here from Minnesota and Wisconsin. But yeah, she's on here to share her health and fitness journey and discuss all things health and fitness. So most importantly, she is our current guest. Alexis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not even going to ask what the weather's like because we live so close to each other. It's pretty much the same as it is all throughout the summer where we actually get a decent time, but then that damn winter. But before we depress each other, why don't you just to start things off, give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're at right now.
So I've been an athlete pretty much my entire life. I originally kind of was all over the spectrum. My parents signed me up for pretty much any rec sport that our community had to offer, and that's kind of what I was doing. I had a friend in early childhood where we got signed up for football, and we were the only two girls that were in the sport or that team for that matter playing. And it kind of just went from there. And then I started playing softball, and I got really involved in that. I played competitively. I was on the tournament teams. I played up until about the end of my junior year, and then I thought I fell in love. I found my significant other. You know how that goes when you're heading into your senior year and you're head over heels, and then that kind of fell apart. And I was going to play softball in college, but just with the decisions that I made during that period in time, it just didn't end up happening. But through, like how we had talked about earlier, the workouts with the sports and everything like that, I became very interested in it. So got a gym membership around 14, 15, was going with my mom. I had a lot of fun. And then through that, I met a lot of personal trainers who were talking to me about competing and, these bodybuilding shows. And I had no idea what it was. I was like, who are these people that are like, have brown spray paint all over them and they're flexing their muscles? I don't want anything to do with that. I liked eating healthy. I liked working out. For being 15, 16 at the time, I didn't know that many other people who would work out at the gym. You're just a child, and it's a very small world at that time. So then I graduated high school, and I think I was 18 is when I started to bodybuild. I had found a friend who decided she wanted to compete, and I was like, this is my way in. I'm going to follow suit, which I wouldn't recommend to other people. Don't do something because someone else is doing it. Do it because you want to. So I found a coach. I didn't really click with that coach. So someone else introduced me to another coach, and I just hit the ground running after that. I'm not going to say that I looked fantastic my first time competing, but I really just fell in love with the process. And I've been competing since I was 18, and I turned 25 on Monday. So that's kind of the background in a really short term.
Well, I turned 29 on Saturday, and my mom had her birthday yesterday, so that means you are exactly in between me and my mom's birthday. So first of all, happy birthday, you 25. Good God, take me back to that. Well, it's only 4 years away, but good God. But what would you say would probably be the most surprising thing that you learned about the sport when you were getting into things? Because so many people, just like we talked about before, their knowledge of the sport is just working out and posing, and there's so much more to that.
The mental commitment, honestly. Dieting never really bothered me. And is it okay if I get a little deep,
Yeah.
like right off the bat, really early on this? So I struggled with an eating disorder throughout high school. So I guess I knew too much about food at a very early on stage in life. So I got the help, whatever. I talked to people who I needed to talk to. And then I really got a full understanding of, nutrition and health, and feeding and fueling yourself is not a bad thing. Like you could argue with people all day long, and they'll tell you that there's bad food, this, bad food, that. Food is food. Food is fuel. I'm just going to put it in simple terms. There are better foods that you can eat. So I figured that out. And it was just the mental commitment of, I'm going to eat the same thing for 6, 7, 8, 9 months in a very hardcore setting. And then when you go into an off season, you still have to be able to commit to that, So it was the mental commitment to that, and then doing stuff when you don't want to do it. getting out of those mental funks and just going to the gym whether you're motivated or not.
How did your mind deal with going from one extreme to an eating disorder to now where you're just eating so much food?
I struggled with it for a while. I mean, even now I still struggle with it. I won't say that my calories currently are as high as they were, let's say like 4 years ago, just because there comes a point in time where you're stuffing yourself not in a very good manner. And then there's another time where you're fueling yourself to grow, where in the past I had struggled with just kind of being an a-hole and eating crappy food and calling it a growing season when in reality I just wanted to get away with, so it was a harder transition for me. But then when I kind of matured a little bit and actually understood, like, you only have one body, treat it the way you should treat it and value it, and that's when it started to get a lot easier for me.
It's all just about learning and growing. I mean, this podcast should really just be renamed Trial and Error, because that's what this entire, lifestyle is. But I love to talk genetics on this podcast because everyone always has that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much when they get started. And they have that one body part that they just have to drag into oblivion to catch up. What was one body part that really took off for you? And what's been one body part that you've just had to drag behind?
Okay, what took off for me were my legs. Literally since I was a child, I was a runner. I did all the running sports that kind of helped excel workouts in high school, whatever. And then the one that I struggle with are my shoulders. Like, I will sell my soul to get my shoulders to grow. I swear it's one of the most aggravating body parts that I have. And I just will never be satisfied with how big they get.
Well, you are joining the large crowd of women that I've had that said, yeah, shoulders by far is the number one body part for a lot of them. And yeah, I agree for myself. I mean, legs, so I was the exact opposite with you. Where, I mean, I'm a taller guy, 6'3", so just can you imagine how much of a struggle that's been? Calves, don't even get me started. The most genetic body part on the planet. I don't care what anyone says, but before, I start tearing up a little bit, talking about calves and how, I just wasn't blessed with that. And also getting this lifestyle too, it's a big time commitment. You really sacrifice a lot. What was your friends and family's reaction like first off when you announced them, like, hey, I want to give bodybuilding a try?
Honestly, I didn't have any conversations with them about it. I was like, I'm just gonna do, because I grew up doing, I mean, okay, I was goody two shoes growing up, I'll put it that way. But the second I turned 18, I was like, this is my life. I'm gonna do whatever I want. I was the kid who was like, nobody can tell me what to do. Life is on my own terms. So when I told them, I was like, I'm going to be one of those people that has a spray tan on a stage and a sparkly suit doing some poses, they were like, oh, like, cool. But then there were some other family members who were like, are you starving yourself? Are you? And then I really broke it down to them. I was like, this is what I'm eating. This is how many times a day I'm eating. And they were like, oh, that's actually a lot. And they were kind of surprised by how big of I'll talk about commitment a lot about this. They were very surprised about how much time and effort actually goes into a sport like this.
Yeah, that's why I love to bring on competitors and talk to them, because there's just so much more to it that doesn't meet the eye. I mean, you don't see the crying on the treadmill. You don't see the just prepping themselves, their meals. And then you're just like, oh my, I mean, it's impressive. I'm not going to lie, but there are times where I'm like, okay, these people are absolutely insane, but they're insane in a good way. But yeah, it's just that whole time commitment. How did you deal with the strained relationships that a lot of people I talk to, like with friends, it's hard for a lot of friends to reconcile and realize that, like, hey, I'm not going to be seeing you as much because you're going to be spending so much more time focused on this?
So at first, I will say it was more of me who struggled with it with my friends. I just didn't have the energy to go hang out with them, or, at the time when I did initially start, we weren't even 21 yet. So, we were sneaking into the bars.
It's Wisconsin though. Good God. You could
literally,
you could be 5 years old. Yeah.
You'd be like, I'm 14. Can you let me in? They'd be like, as long as, you can pretend someone in here is your parent. Sure. Like, that's totally fine. But
yeah, for everyone out there, Wisconsin is the one state where there is a law. If you're like, what is it? So it's 14. If you have a parent with you, you can legally drink in a bar.
I think it's 15.
15. Either way, it's just, that's,
I mean, it's not good. But
that's Wisconsin in a nutshell, everyone. That's why, friendly the rivalry. It's, oh my God. But yeah. So yeah, the friendship thing though that was tough for me too, especially getting into this, even though, like I said, like I never competed. But did you have any nerves about stepping on stage in a bikini in front of a lot of people? Because that to me is something that I would just be terrified of.
Oh God, yeah. it wasn't even the bikini part, it was the posing part. It was the fear of tripping over my feet and like face planting in front of hundreds of people and being laughed at. But then in reality, you watch everyone else, and as long as it's like a fake it till you make it kind of thing. So if you make that trip kind of look good, no one's ever going to notice and no one's going to care. As long as you can recover and the judges see that you recovered, then that kind of shows your pose on stage and just how easy it is for you to adapt to kind of what's being thrown at you up there.
Well, I mean, talking about posing too, that is the hardest thing for so many guests that I've had on. What was your relationship like with posing?
I hated it starting off. I hated it, but then one day it just clicked for me. And now, I mean, I still sweat my butt off when I pose just because it honestly is a workout in itself. But I love it now. It really is, it gives you the ability to, one, display what you worked on for 6+ months on stage. And then two, kind of express yourself how an artist expresses themselves. It's just what you and how you put yourself out in the sport and kind of displays who you are as a person up there.
Out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite and what is your least favorite?
I'll start off with my least favorite. I really cannot stand the back pose for me in the quarter turns. I really can't. And I don't know why. I just think it's because my back hurts so bad, especially after competing. It hurts so bad. It's sore for days. And then my favorite one is my power pose. I really, really like that one. I feel super powerful. I mean, that's why you call it the power pose. It's a fun little lat spread, and you flex your quads, you get to see all the lines and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun doing that one.
When it comes to flaring the lats, that is the thing that I hear most from especially the female guests I have on, is that's one of the hardest things to do. Was that something that was easy for you? Was that something that took, I mean, I've talked to people that's taken years for them to get it to work.
So for me, my first show, I kind of struggled with it. It honestly didn't click until probably 4, maybe even 3 weeks before my competition. But then once I got that and it clicked, it was very easy for me to do then on after.
Yeah, it's just like riding a bike. I've always told people, it's once you learn it, it's really hard to unlearn it. But just when we talk about the whole mentality too, I mean, just the sleep, the cardio, the nutrition, it's just so many little things. But when it comes down to the cardio, I hate it so much. If I could have a lean body size without doing any cardio, I would almost trade anything for it. But when you do become a bodybuilder, you sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. What was that like for you? And how do you feel about cardio now? Has it gotten easier for you? Or do you still hate it?
Okay, I actually really like it now.
Oh God.
But hear me out. For starters, people hate high intensity interval training. I like it, one, because you are so focused on for that time being so focused on what you're doing at that time. And mine is only 20 minutes long. 20 minutes really isn't that much. I'll sit and watch TikToks for 20 minutes straight and not even realize it was 20 minutes, So that goes by super fast. You put on some good songs, you hammer it out, and it's done and over with. Steady state is steady state. I'll put on a movie. That's kind of where I catch up on emails, stuff like that. So it's a good time for me to recoup. I mean, believe it or not, your heart rate's 155 beats per minute. So I wouldn't call it a recoup, but that's kind of what it feels like to me. And it's kind of where you just let it all out on the table. Like at the end of a workout, I do have fasted cardio. So it's a nice, refresher when you wake up and get yourself moving and going. I mean, I wake up at 3:30 every day just to go and do that BS. So I will say I only go that early because there's one stair stepper at my gym that I need to be on. I have to be on that specific one.
So just to give you a little thing, I am doing a podcast at midnight tonight because I'm having a guest on from the UK and it's 6 or 7 a.m. their time. So I have to stay up. But normally I'm a little bit of a night owl. Like I'll be in bed at like 1 or 2 probably and get up at, like 8 or 9, whenever it is. But so I have a fun cardio story that happened to me last night. So I go on walks every night and that's not really, cardio. I just got to get my, 10,000-ish steps in or so. But looked at my radar. Oh, we might get a scattered shower or something like that. So I thought, it'll be fine. About half an hour into it, all of a sudden, and there was lightning off in the distance. I was like, oh, it's far away. It's not going to get me. Then all of a sudden, it just started to sprinkle a little bit. And I was like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. So then I went underneath a tree because I was like, oh, it'll probably pass by. Literally a minute later, it was one of the worst downpours I've ever seen in my entire life. The wind was it just took off and blew. I had to call my roommate and be like, okay, you got to come pick me up. And I could barely even talk to him because like anytime I would open my mouth, like the wind, it would like make it hard to breathe. So then I did get a little bit of cardio. And so I did sprinted for about 5 minutes because I knew that there was a tunnel underneath a bridge there that like was safe in case because like trees, I was afraid that stuff was going to fall down because I was underneath a huge amount of trees and they were shaking like crap. So I had to get a dead sprint in. And then, yeah, that was, I mean, I just hate weather. I just do. It's just.
If there's one thing about the Midwest and their storms, it's around and find out. I'll tell you that much. That's the Midwest for you.
I've learned, I mean, I've lived here my entire life and I've, still I need to learn that a little bit more, but it's just, yeah, it is ridiculous how crazy it is. And then you got all these stupid wildfires, so then the air quality's crap. So then there's like half the times of summer, it's like you can't really go out for a walk unless it's, it is brutal. But just the whole mental side also that we talked about a little bit before of just this whole competition and, you're being out and you're being judged by others. How do you deal with the judgment part of it? Because I mean, a lot of sports have, umpires and they have other people to judge, but this is a rare sport where you're just specifically judged on the way that you look.
It's subjective. That's what it is. And I think I kind of joke around about it because I'm the biggest judger of myself. I am the most judgmental person when it comes to myself. So there's a voice in the back of my head that says everyone's already judging you already. So who freaking cares, So when it's a panel of strangers, it doesn't bother me, like I could never see these people again. And you just saw me in a swimsuit for what? We're up there for 30 seconds at a time, if that, why would I let that bother me? Or why would I let that, sit in my brain for the next week or so? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter,
When you talk about yourself being your biggest critic, is there anything that you do to try to make it so that you're not just constantly ripping yourself apart?
I honestly, I try to put a positive light into it. So I always like to make comparisons of maybe where I started off or where I even was a year ago. Personally, for me, my bodybuilding journey has been a roller coaster. 2020, when the pandemic was happening, everyone was stating how, it was the worst time of their lives and blah, blah, blah. And in reality, for me, it was the best time. I was able to focus on something that I really enjoyed doing. Believe it or not, the competition at the show I ended up doing, which was North Americans, was the best that I had ever seen it. Honestly, it was my second national show, and it was amazing, and I really liked that. So, how do I stop saying all the time?
Oh, okay. So I have actually compilations of two guests. I would never release them because it's mean, but like I send it to them afterwards. If they say, so it's like one of them I say a lot. And I've sent and they're each about 2.5 minutes long of literally them saying like, so it's literally like hundreds of times that they've said like on a podcast. And it takes me longer to just do that than it does to edit the actual podcast because every time they say like, I have to take it out and edit it. And I tell them, I said, this is just because I had to deal with you saying like for that many times that I'm going to send you this video. But yeah, I'm never going to release it because that's just too cruel. But I'm just like, if I have to sit through that, you're going to have to at least sit through yourself.
Like, this is my blackmail to you.
Exactly. Well, I'm just like, you're going to have to sit through this since I had to sit through it. So, there's that. But no, I have an ear for that stuff, and you were not saying nearly as much as you think. Okay. Again, just like the sport of bodybuilding, it's all in your head, Alexis.
I know. Let's think. Where was I going with that? So back to the pandemic. I mean, so from there, I was, honestly, I'll say peak of my, physique, whatever. So then we go into 2021. I'm headed into my off season. It's probably the best off season that I had initially gone into. But then I started school, and then just stuff kept, falling and falling and falling, and then it ended up being 2022. And I'm like, hello, stage, like, why am I not back yet? But personal things happen. But I personally just like to reflect on whether it's physical or mental, how to overcome all of those things, whether it was 2020 and a pandemic was going on, really enjoying where I was and how I was doing it. And then even being 2022, I got my degree and all that fun stuff. So it's just a matter of having a positive outlook in the long run. I was going to graduate school either way. It was from 2020 to 2022, and I did it. So now it's nice for me to be able to go and focus back on something I really enjoyed doing. I mean, I feel like I missed out on a ton because 3 years freaking flies by. I'll tell you that.
Well, what's your opinion on this? Because I've always found it funny that we live in the upper Midwest, which is one of the more healthier regions of the country, I'd say. But other than the Chicago Pro, which isn't like, it's not really, I wouldn't really consider Chicago to be really like Midwestern, but like that's the only real competition really the MPC has, like major pro comp. Why don't you think that there's more? Because I was like, they could have one in Milwaukee, they could have one in Minneapolis, they could have one somewhere. Like, I'm just shocked how there isn't that many like huge pro shows up here.
So I'm trying to think. There's one. Is it a pro-am? It might be in Kenosha. I think that's what it is. I can't remember what it's called though. I think 2 years ago it had a pretty good turnout, or 3 years ago it had a pretty good turnout, but I just don't think we're on the map that much. In Chicago, because it is a bigger city, it's more on the map. But I personally do think that there are a lot of phenomenal athletes that come out of the Midwest that we kind of just shock whoever it is, because you got like East Coast, West Coast people, and they're collectively coming together, and you just get this little Midwesterner coming into the competition that no one really ever sees coming.
Yeah, I mean, because there's so many. I mean, there's local shows at my high school that I'm going to in a couple of months. I mean, there's a lot of like natural and local stuff there. But when it comes to the big stuff, yeah, there's Chicago. Well, then there's Omaha too, which is also like another 6-hour drive for me. But that's, you'd think that there'd just be a little bit more there. But yeah, I'm shocked because yeah, there is one thing that I've started with this podcast that I've tried to get a lot more, Minnesotans or Wisconsinites on here just to show that there is so much more talent here than a lot of people see. But what's the gym culture like where you work out? Because that is so important for people to, be friendly to each other, to really just have a good time there. That's one of the biggest things I think that would encourage people to keep working out. And because believe me, I've been to some gyms where the culture there is crap, where you're just like, I get it. But then I've been to other ones where you're like, okay, I can definitely see myself going here multiple times.
Yeah. So I have two examples. So originally my bodybuilding started at Animal House in New Berlin, Wisconsin. They'll say Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but it's New Berlin, technically speaking. And that great environment. I think the owners, John and Karen, are phenomenal owners of that gym. So that just right off the bat makes it an incredible environment to go to. They have their, I think it's 6 or 7 dogs behind the counter with them that they're just chilling, So immediately walking in, you get these big fluff balls greeting you, barking, whatever. A lot of good personal trainers come out of there. A lot of good coaches come out of there. They're always very welcoming when it comes to that. If you have questions, you can literally tap someone on the shoulder and ask them how to do something or how to use the machine, the cable, whatever it is. And then it really comes down to the clients that go in there, the gym goers, the lifestylers, the bodybuilders, and you just have that Midwestern sweetness, But then I ended up moving away from New Berlin, and I'm at more of I don't want to say commercial because it's a smaller gym, but I think it's also the clientele that go there. So they're, first of all, there's children in there, and I'm not the biggest fan of kids. I won't even lie to you. I don't hate them, but I'm not a fan. So that kind of just bad vibes right off the bat. And it gives more of a commercial feel to it. And you'll hear a lot of people say how commercial gyms kind of suck. So not a lot of equipment. Animal House has a ton of equipment, a lot of different equipment. They literally, I think, just got 6 or 7 new pieces as of yesterday, and they waited 15 months for it. So Animal House will go out of their way to ask their clients, what do you want out of this gym? How can we cater towards you? Whereas the gym that I kind of dabble at now doesn't really do that. And someone had said that they didn't want to cater to bodybuilders, when in reality, this is the only gym in the area that we can go to where that's not what we're asking. We're just asking for equipment that they care about, so then we can care about it. So if you show us that you don't care about what it is that you're bringing to the environment, then that makes for people not caring as well. And then on top of that, there's a high school next to it. So you can understand who goes into that gym.
A lot of teenage gym bros, I would imagine. Yeah, that's got to be
Don't forget the white tank top, the chain, and the permed out hair.
benching 120 and thinking you're God's gift to the world and stuff. Yeah, don't even.
We all start somewhere, but
Yeah.
just don't start there. Just don't start there.
Exactly. I couldn't have. I mean, I compare it also to like a fast food chain where if you go to a chain restaurant, completely different from a mom and pop, like burger joint or something like that, where it's run differently and it just seems a little bit too corporate and, commercial. But what are some of the reactions that you get looking the way that you look, especially as you get closer to a show? Because like I've said this a million times on the podcast, this is one of the questions that I ask every single time. You look like a mini celebrity. Like, what is that like for you to get those reactions? Because for a lot of people, it's just hard to adjust to the fact of the amount of attention that you're going to get.
Oh, I feed into it. I'll feed into it. But I won't let people know that I feed into it. But who doesn't like the satisfaction of hearing, "Oh my God, you look amazing"? I won't even hide that fact. And everyone who bodybuilds will totally agree with that. It's a total ego booster, it air in the head, total airhead. But at first it was kind of hard to adjust to because you don't want people to look at you like you're gross, like it, not that that's how you feel, but it's more of a, well, I don't want to offend you because of the way I look and the way that I feel, where the longer you get into the sport, the less you really care. You just give no f- but it really never bothered me, if you're offended by a vein in my bicep and my shoulders, you have bigger concerns to worry about.
Has anyone ever been offended by a vein in your bicep or shoulders?
Yeah, they tell me that I've been told it's gross. I've been told I look like a man. I've been told all of those things, which, like I said, you have bigger fish to fry if that's what honestly is bothering you.
Which I'm shocked, because being where we live, I think it would be like against everyone's nature to even like comment to some. We would just say it behind their back. We wouldn't just say it up to their face. So
it's the trolls though, or you're in a public setting and it's just a passing by, and that's when everyone has the most guts to say something to you.
Well, I want to go positive on this. So is there one positive moment where someone came up and commented that really sticks out in your mind?
I won't say one. I will say when it's kind of like the older bodybuilders that'll come and compliment you, and you can tell they've been in the industry for a while because they have an eye and they have a niche for this sport. And when you get a compliment from someone like that, then it means a whole lot more. Where I'm not saying that the other compliments don't mean anything, but it's nice to have someone relay and give you that response about the way that you look because they've seen so many different people within the industry.
I mean, honestly, if you were to tell me that getting a compliment from Arnold Schwarzenegger versus like Joe Random is the same thing, I would just be like, whatever.
But,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
People, I mean, yeah, exactly. No, I understand that 1,000,000%, but post show is something that I love to talk about because it's not something that's really talked about as much. And like with the whole mental struggle of it, how do you deal with that? Just that cycle of you're going to have to put on weight. You're going to have to put on size. A lot of people just don't understand how hard that is mentally, especially for women, because you get to such a great look and then it's just, you can't sustain it. But how do you deal with the whole off season and post show blues?
So with getting my degree, so I got my degree in dietetics. So originally I wanted to become a dietitian. So I got the education of food is fuel. Here are the foods that will help you feel best, X, Y, and Z, where when you're at such a lean body percentage for such a long time, and I won't even say such a long time, I guess I want to say more of like a month or two, when you really get to the nitty gritty part at the end of your prep, you need food to get back to a good place, especially for women, just because our hormone structure is so different compared to men. And unfortunately for some people, you do have to gain weight, and it's a matter of going through, a certain amount of preps and not rebounding terribly afterwards to get to a point where you can actually trust yourself to follow a plan to the T. And then, because at some point your coach is going to tell you that you can eat more. You're not going to be at those certain amount of calories you were before you got on stage, where it could be 6, 7, 8 weeks, or it could be 4 weeks after your show that your coach decides, this is how many calories that I'm going to increase you to, but your body, it has to be in a good position in order for them to do that.
It's just a lot of acceptance. I mean, I've heard of so many people that, just struggle with it so much, but some people say it gets easier, some people it gets harder. I mean, I really just honestly believe that it depends on the person, and especially in the day and age that we are now, because even though I talk about how healthy a lot of the Midwest is, I've gone to some public events recently, and it is just, it's bad. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's very bad, where you just look at it and you're just like, okay, we are screwed, like, in the future. So what advice do you have for people just to get started working out? Because I've said it a million times. You take that first step in the gym, it is very hard to walk out without getting a workout in.
So originally I had started with YouTube. So and especially with how social media is now, 9 out of 10 times you can message that one influencer that you see on Instagram or TikTok, and you have the phone at your fingertips to get a message back from them. I say start asking questions, start doing research. There are no dumb questions. If you want to know how many calories are in a piece of broccoli or 5 pieces of broccoli, Google it, or ask professionals too. That is such a nice thing about social
I mean,
media.
I would honestly say with the broccoli, Google it, because I would be kind of pissed if someone asked me that, like, how many calories in that, when you're like, okay, just Google it. Like,
Literally,
yeah,
how many calories are in broccoli?
yeah.
But literally, just social media. I mean, okay, social media can be good and bad, but I will say for getting started, social media, start seeing who's doing what, how they're doing it. Go to a bodybuilding show. Bodybuilding shows are relatively cheap. I think it's like $15 for prejudging, $20 for
What?
prejudging. Yeah.
What shows are
Okay.
you
Well,
going to?
it also depends on, are you paying more or are you paying less?
Much more.
Oh, well, I mean, I also haven't been to a show in I think like a year or two, but it's
Yeah.
$20, $25.
Times that by 3.
Oh no, and then I wouldn't be going.
The only reason, so I'll tell you what I did, how I got in for a little bit cheaper, but after we're done recording, because I don't want to admit it on live. But, I got in for much cheaper than that. But because I was always wondering, like, how do these people make money doing those shows? And then you look at the ticket prices for those shows, and I'm like, yeah, I can understand why. So I'm going to be honest. So I went to a casino right by where I live, because they have the MPC Twin Cities, which was a couple weeks ago that I went to. I saw a fairly well famous comedian at that same place. The comedian was cheaper than the bodybuilding show. So that's when I was just like, okay, this is a little different. But I've seen tickets for like some of the more like amateur shows, like the one I'm going to at my old high school. That one's kind of around your ticket price range that you were talking about. But yeah, this is
Yep,
yeah.
that was what I was referring to. But if you talk about like the national shows, I think so. I had done Miami in 2019. Finals tickets, I think, were $150 or $160. It was insane, and I had people fly out there to watch me compete. Now I had to tell them, if you do not want to fork over this money to watch me compete, I will not be mad at you. We'll go back to the Airbnb. We'll talk about how we did, whatever. I will not ever want someone that I care about to pay that much money to just watch me walk around on stage.
Because like that's more than Vikings or Packers game tickets, really. That's just, and that's like when you're just like, okay, really? Like,
Yeah, no. You can watch a live stream, especially a free live stream at that rate. But I will say for a lot of the amateur shows, because I know a couple promoters, and a lot of them are just starting off now too. So I can understand their fear of offending people with some ticket prices, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into these shows, which I commend them for doing. But there has to be a middle ground for some of these people as well.
the only thing with me is like, because I know a lot of the promoters, but I'm far too Midwestern to ask them for like free tickets and be like, hey, I'll plug your show, I'll promote your show. I just don't want to do that, because it's like, that's just not what I
Right.
like. So like, that's the only thing. But yeah, that's one of those times where you do talk to people from the East and West Coast, and you're like, I just wish I was a little bit more like that, where like I stuck up a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. But when it comes to the social media aspect, I always find it fascinating that in this day and age, you can look at basically any person you're competing against and see how their progress is. Do you struggle with that at all? And if you do or don't, is there any way that you try to mitigate that? Because for me, that would be a big problem of me just like checking like once a week at the least on someone, just being like, oh, I'm not competing against them, let's see what they look like. And then they could post some very flattering photo and I'd be like, okay, I'm not ready.
I will say, starting off, I mean, granted, I was very young, so who wasn't comparing themselves to every person they saw on the internet. I will say, as I got deeper into the sport, I started looking at some of the girls I would compete against less as competitors and more as friends. My main objective going into these shows is to make friends. It's not to get first place. I mean, granted, first place is awesome, second place is awesome, third place is awesome, but I like the friendships that I get out of it more because there are people I still keep in contact, especially through social media after these shows, which have turned into lifelong friends, where that's the super nice part about social media, especially with competing, is the amount of people, the great coaches that you meet in the process, the super awesome competitors, the promoters, the photographers, the videographers, all those. It's really amazing what social media has done.
1,000,000%. I mean, I wouldn't even be able to do this podcast without that. And I'm doing my first ever live, like person-to-person podcast on Saturday, where I'm driving like 45 minutes to go and talk to a guest I've already had on, but she's like a couple weeks out from her physique show. So I'm going to be sleeved up to the max because I do not want to embarrass myself and just be like, okay, yep, we're talking here. So, how you doing? How's that? Anyways, yeah, let's not talk about that. So what are your thoughts on Barbie and Oppenheimer? Like, what is that? Like, we'll get into that. No, but like, yeah, it's what?
I want to see that movie, not Barbie, Oppenheimer. I want to see that movie.
So I might be seeing it 2 hours after I'm done talking. There's one at 5 o'clock that I might go see. Either that or I'm going to see it tomorrow. But yeah, if everyone's listening to this, we're recording this when the day that Oppenheimer. It's weird because they say it comes out on the 21st, but then you can see it on the 20th, like at 5 o'clock at night.
Oh, do they do those like pre-showing?
No, it's because they used to do the midnight premiere, but that was all I did for high school, was go to midnight premieres. But like now they just do it where it's like, yeah, I think then they just be like, instead of midnight premieres, we'll do it at like 5 o'clock up to midnight too. You can go see shows. So yeah, I might be seeing that later. So yeah, it looks really, really good. So I'm a history minor, so anything with that, I would have been a major, but you got to be a teacher for that, and I'm sorry, I cannot deal with. Especially like even if I was a college professor, like I couldn't deal with it. And I would get too lazy too. I would just tell the TA, I'd be like, "You teach the class, I'll just chill out in my office or something like that." So
I'm just gonna throw my feet up and kick back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I would be far, far too tempted for that. But what are your future plans in the sport? Like, where are you currently at like right now? And when we talk to you in a year, because I'd love to have you on in a year, where'd you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey?
I would have liked to at least be a year from now getting ready to go on stage. I really, really want to get on stage in 2024. And I'm saying really want to, just because I've always let my coach tell me when they want me to compete, because they can look at me with a non-biased, non-personal eye and tell me what they actually think. Whereas if I wanted to pick and choose when I would go on stage, I would have already been up there, and I don't think I would have been ready to show what I'm actually capable of doing, especially with how long I have been away from stage. Because believe it or not, people will lose weight, lose muscle, especially within a 3-year time frame. It feels short. It also feels long at the same time. There are things that I personally feel like I need to make up for, having stepped away for so long. But I'm going to put it out in the air. I would like to be out on stage in 2024 for sure.
And I'm a sucker for tattoos. I got to admit it. I've never gotten one myself, but we see if you want to talk about them, what are the stories behind them? And I'm just fascinated by tattoos.
So I'll do a little turn. So this is an unfinished Medusa. So I started this one, I want to say end of 2021.
Can I just say you made her pretty well endowed?
I always tell people, I was like, she has better boobs than I do. So her snakes aren't all filled in as of yet. I don't know if you can really tell on screen, but started her. This was the first. These are a bunch of flowers. There's the first start of my sleeve. I really wanted to be. I guess I wanted to be badass. So that's what I wanted. I'll take my watch off because I started a Harry Potter sleeve. That's the castle,
the flying car. You got it all.
I got the flying car. You got some birds up there.
The Quidditch field. Good guy. Oh, the Dark Mark. Come on.
Yeah. So I had to do that. I haven't gotten anything sleeve related.
If you put a stick to your forearm, does it actually do something with the dark mark?
I wish. I wish. I am in the Slytherin house too, by the way. I growing up, I wanted to be Hogwarts, like not Hogwarts. I want to be Gryffindor so bad in Hogwarts, but I'm Slytherin at heart.
All right, okay. This is just because I know you're a Hogwarts person. I'm going to pause the podcast. I'm going to be back in literally 30 seconds. This will still be live, but I'm just going to show this to everyone. Actually, it'll be edited, but I have a surprise for you then that I'm just going to hang on. Give me 30 seconds. Yep. We got butterbeer.
Stop.
Yeah. Is my last can of it, or my last bottle of it. You can buy them
Did it come in a case?
Yeah, you can buy like 8 of them. It's the non-alcoholic version, and yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's not that good, but it's something. If I'm really thirsty, I'll have something. But it's butterscotch flavored, and you can buy them online. So,
what is it in Orlando? What is it called?
Harry Potter World or something like that.
Yes. I don't know why I didn't think of that. So I had gone there 2017, and they have like butterbeer floats.
Yep.
Those ones are actually really good. I will say that those ones are very good, but I don't know. I can't imagine them in the bottle being too fantastic.
I mean, they're all right. Well, the thing is, this one I got literally around Christmas time, so it's been sitting there for a while. So it's not the best, I will say that. But yeah, it's nice to really. I mean, I could imagine maybe putting like ice cream, like making a float out of it myself. But yeah, I like Harry Potter myself, not as much as my older brother. He just loves that crap. But yeah, he hasn't. But here's the thing: he's the person where he's never even read the books.
Oh.
So he asked me, he's like, so what are the difference between the books and the movie? And I was like, okay, they do about half of each book in a movie. Like, it's not even.
There's so many minor details that they leave out of these movies.
So then I spend like half an hour each movie, like telling them, like, oh, they added a scene right here with so and so, or right. This really happens, or this cool stuff really happens in there, and it's like. The one that pisses me off the most is the Goblet of Fire. How much they messed up from the movie.
Yeah.
Like the whole Triwizard Tournament, they messed up on so many. Like there's a talking lion in the maze, and they didn't even include that. And it's just so.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah, I know we're gonna be talking until Friday basically. Then if we get into the Harry Potter here, but
it's offensive what they left out of those movies.
Oh, hey, it's not. At least it's not Game of Thrones season 8. Don't even get me on that.
Okay, so I started reading the books.
I haven't yet, but no. So this is kind of freaky because yesterday I decided that I was going to buy the books, and I just bought the first one on Amazon. But yeah, because I rewatched the entire series like 3 months ago, and it just pissed me off again, even more than it did the first time. But it's just like
I think I watched 2 or 3 episodes, and I was like, I should commit to the books first, see what I get out of that, and see how offended I'm going to be watching the show.
Wait, so you haven't seen all the show?
No, I keep seeing snippets, and I've seen so many snippets of the show that I already know that I'm going to be pissed because so many people tell me that I'm going to be pissed.
I'm not going to lie.
And now I don't know if I can commit to the show.
I'm not going to lie. Just watch the first 7 seasons. Do not watch the 8th.
People keep saying that, but I got to know.
I'm not even going to spoil it for you, but like, it will make you want to do physical violence on the people that created the show.
Have you seen the reactions to the actors and actresses reading the script for that season? Oh god, it was ridiculous. I was like, I know I'm gonna be pissed.
Well, and then I saw like the interviews that they do. They're like, yeah, it was great. And then, yeah, exactly. So
0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Like, well, so me and my brother have had this conversation before. Where we're like, are they just trolling us? Like the people that created the show. Like, did they just do this just to see like what we can get away with? Because yeah, it is ridiculous. But again, we are getting into dangerous tangent territory here because like I have like 10 different talking points now to bring up in my head. But so Alexis, I mean, yeah, it's just, again, there's so much we could talk about. But if there was one thing that you could change about the sport of bodybuilding, if someone were to walk up to you and say, you know, Alexis, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Ooh, that's a really tough one. I think I have 2. I will say one, it's not going to be as serious. I will say I was very surprised by the height classes with men's physique. I was very surprised by that, and I don't know how I feel about it. I'm very indecisive about that. So if we could go back, but then I understand it. Like the weight classes, not the height, the weight classes. I understand that, but Another one is the saturation of it. Like I think people need to have honest conversations with themselves before stepping on stage. But then at the same time, I'm very conflicted because we all started as this little itty bitty wannabe bodybuilder, you know. So I don't know if I would honestly make any changes to it because people find out what's for them and what isn't for them, you know. And I can't be the one to stop them from making the decisions that they make.
Well, I mean, I've said a billion times, prize money by far. Like, come on, people.
Especially for the women
That
categories,
too.
you know, it's very heartbreaking for watching some of the women get paid what they do, and then you see classic physique, you know, getting these big paychecks, and the women walking away with what, 10 grand.
I mean, you need to win the Olympia if you really want to just be able to just do this for a living, and that's one person a year. So for each category, but yeah, it's
And think
ridiculous.
of sponsors. Think of the people who are, especially like the meal prepping services, people with clothes, literally everything. People outside of, you know, the bodybuilding sponsors, there's just the men, I mean, in that avenue get so much more than the women do in the other realm, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wish, yeah, there was more of a way. I mean, there are some shows that I think that are trying to, like the Wings of Strength, they're trying to make it a little bit more even for pay, but it's gotten better, but it's still, yeah, nowhere near close to where it needs to be. And I just think there just needs to be a big reckoning too with like realizing that they got to put a product out there too that the masses would generally want more if they want to get more money out of it too. So that's got to be a big discussion in and of itself too. But yeah, there's plenty that I personally myself enjoy about the sport. There's plenty that I don't, just like with any sport. I mean, I'm a huge baseball guy, and there's still some things about that sport that I just still am like, we got to change this. But yeah, and I mean, Alexis, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey with us. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Mm, myself. No, I'm kidding. No, honestly, I would just say everyone who's supported me throughout this entire journey, whether they're still in my life or, you know, we have parted ways. I just am very appreciative of everyone who has supported me when I was at the top of my competing career and where I'm currently at now. You know, it's the people who stick around are for lifers, and I appreciate that the most out of anyone who has watched me, you
Yeah,
know, compete.
absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. And everyone, go and follow Alexis on her Instagram. I'll leave a link down below. Buyer beware. I say this a million times, and I'll continue to say it. You will be inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, Alexis, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. All right, everyone. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.